right, let's see if we're live. And looks like we're live. Let me just double check to make sure sound's coming through all right. Okay, let me... All right, let's test this out. Okay, cool. Looks like sound is doing good. Currently, it's been a while since I've been streaming, so oops, sorry. So that's kind of what. So a lot's been happening just currently right now. I'm working on a. I'm working on a project that's as far as like I'm it's a animation project. I'm currently doing the writing for it, and I've been kind of busy with that, busy with work and just everything that's been going on with my own life. So I've just kind of everything's just been kind of been going on. I've just been kind of busy with life as well, and I haven't really gotten the time to. Let me look at. Gotten really the time to get back into streaming, but one thing I figure I'd like to do real quick is I've made a tier list, kind of. This is essentially who I think the next top 10 in My Hero Academia is going to be. Now, with this list, this is kind of a fluid list. It's not like definitively this person's always going to be in this particular spot. A lot of characters could easily rise up in the rankings, and some could fall, just depending on how the nature of these characters. But this is just I'd feel like more of an average of who would be in the top 10. The most, like who would be in the top 10 the most out of the students of really just students all over. So let's start. I'm going to go down from 10 or from 1 to 10 rather than the other way around, because some of the things are going to be a little obvious in the top ones. Some of them might not. I might put some people in not so obvious spots, but first one, it's Midoriya. It's obviously going to be Deku. He's the main character. I think the story even starts out saying, "This is how I became the number one hero." Sorry. So, yeah, Deku is definitely number one, especially with more recent developments of the use of his ability, and with I'm trying to say it without like spoiling too much, if in case somebody doesn't watch the show. Um, but yeah, like his abilities have just gotten so strong as of late. So it's kind of hard not to put the main character as the number one in that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's dust or something. Need to get some water. Hold on, I'll be right back. Oh. Oh, sorry about that. All right, but now that's settled, uh, I can put, I can continue. I feel like there's really nothing more to say with uh, Midoriya being number one. He's the main character, and he's got plot armor. So I don't know what else you could say about that. And I will also, at this moment, since it's really early, just preface by saying that this list is based on everything that's currently going on in the anime as of the English dub, which is what I'm watching right now. I haven't seen ahead. I haven't looked ahead. I haven't read ahead or anything like that. So I'm just basing it off of where the dub is at currently. So obviously some of these things might change. I don't know if any characters are alive by the end of the whether it be the next season or by the end of the story. Um, I so many things could change. There's a lot of drastic things going on in the story right now. So yeah, who knows where what this list would actually look like. But as for number two, as it stands, Bakugo. He's got to be the number two. His power is just so he's just so powerful. So with his gauntlet, so creative with his ability too, like with his gauntlets and everything. And he's really just like he seems impulsive, but he's actually very deliberate and smart about what he's doing, and that I think is what makes him really interesting about uh, in this particular really just in any of his battles. They're so interesting, creative, and like very he clearly thinks about what he's doing in a battle and his battle strategy more than you would expect, or more than a lot of people would give him credit for. Um, that so, I mean, I think that's one of the thing that really is what sets him apart from other characters, is just how like, aside from just his sheer strength, which is immense and insane. Um, but yeah, like there will be characters that are really strong that are on this list that are probably lower than than a lot of people would expect. Uh, and then there's also people who have not a very strong power. That just leads me into the next point. Mirio. I think this is an interesting situation. I think he's potentially the number three hero, and this might shock a lot of people because I think people would want to put some other characters there. But I think Mirio is he's got such a passion for saving people, very much like Izuku, but he is so capable, and this could just be the experience gap, at least whenever he first showed up, like the experience gap between him and some of the younger students. Um, but I mean, he is still a very uh, like he has made the his ability, which isn't very good, and made it unstoppable essentially. Um, so I think that's one of the reasons why I would say Mirio is probably surpassing a lot more, surpassing some characters that you probably wouldn't expect he'd surpass. Uh, and I think his drive is what's going to whoops. I think his drive is what's going to push him forward above number four, which is Todoroki. I kind of have to put him in this one, um, just because it's similar to Bakugo, where it's like just his sheer power is so immense that it's hard to figure out he essentially, again, like his whole backstory is just well, I'm not gonna get into that, but it's just like his powers are like peak performance. um and he's wielding them to really the best of his abilities, and he is his motivations are definitely why I put him a little bit lower than Mirio. um I don't feel like he's got a strong enough motivation other than just his dad is a hero, so he's being hero. And even if he does want to surpass Endeavor or whatever, I think he already has, just by being a decent human being. That might have been a little bit too much of a reveal, but I think if you know the characters well enough, you're not shocked um by that. But yeah, for Todoroki, I think he's number four. I think that's uh where he would fall. And then another one that might be a little bit of shocker, kind of like Mirio, Inasa. I believe that's his name. Yeah, Inasa. Very very powerful quirk. Uh, with Todoroki and everyone else, like I think a lot of people would probably expect maybe this is where some of the other big three members might show up in this particular uh, ranking. But honestly, maybe start pushing into some of the other students that are in UA, and like the bigger the some of the other classmates, like lower. I think really honestly, unfortunately, as soon as I started making this list, the more interesting, ranking wise, the more interesting it got was uh I guess I should kind of describe go down the list and describe what their abilities are, uh since I'm just kind of blatantly just kind of talking about it, not spoilery. Uh, so I'll just kind of go back in that. But as far as with what I was thinking with some of these, like this being a particular, uh, this being a particular unique choice, I think I kind of wanted to make this list a little bit more uh, far-reaching and not just be UA students, Class A the main character students. And honestly, I think that becomes a little bit more interesting in like the 11 through, like if I were to expand this list to like 11 through 25. I think that would be a little bit more interesting. But for right now, I'm just going to do this top 10 for this. I might do the next top 10 as well, which is essentially people who are essentially children or not non-existent at this moment. Uh, but yeah, little rundown, just going back and running down through the characters' powers. Izuku Midoriya, his quirk is uh, one for all. Yes, yes. Okay, I have to. I get that confused with another character that's named All for One. But yeah, his quirk is One for All, which is a quirk that's passed down and gets stronger and stronger through the generations. Um, and he is able to actually wield. This is where it starts to get to spoiler territory, because like he gets more and more powerful as the series goes on. It's a shonen show, so that's how that typically goes. So at a certain point, he is able to wield other characters' quirks. I'll just say that, like the characters that the quirks that some of the One for All users before him had. He's able to tap into those, and that versatility, and that is also probably just the sheer another reason why he is rocketed to number one. He already had a massive amount of strength just because of the quirk itself is based on power. But yeah, and he's also extremely versatile and creative in figuring out how to use that power in different ways. But now he just is basically able to tap into multiple different quirks to use to his advantage as a hero. Bakugo's, he literally sweats. He can ignite his sweat and use it to just as explosions. He just can, his sweat just becomes explosions, and he's the essentially the main rival to Midoriya if you're unfamiliar with the show. So he's pretty much the Vegeta to Deku's Goku. But yeah, he like this that sounds like a strange quirk to be like, why is he number two? But he can just essentially propel himself through the air. He can like the explosions are just insane. The way he uses his powers is really just an interesting, like I said, an interesting creative way, and he'll do things that you don't like, that even though it seems like he's very impulsive, he's actually thinking very a lot about what he's doing in his ability. And Mirio, he is essentially like a senior in this group. He has the to I think by the time they meet Mirio, I think the main group is like technically like sophomore. It's weird with Japanese ages, but yeah. So Mirio's like a senior student, so he's more experienced than the main group, but so that pushes him to an advantage above some of the other students. His quirk is he can. It's kind of strange. He can. I mean, it's kind of like in like he like essentially like Shadow Cat, where he can just walk through walls or like just uh phase through things. But it's also there's like an a extra power to it where he can kind of like, depending on like the angle, I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but he can just kind of like propel himself through like the ground. um but it's he's, and again, it sounds like you think like Shadow Cat, it's like that's not really that powerful of a move, but again, he utilizes it in a very unique and is very passionate about being a hero, and that kind of drive is why, even though his quirk isn't as good, he's made the very best use of his quirk. Todoroki, he is able to control ice and fire. That's basically it. He's more interesting in than just describing like that because of just his family drama, as opposed to his quirk. His quirk is pretty simple and basic. And then Inasa, I think it's a little bit more complicated than just he can control wind. But that's like basically he can control wind. But I think he can also control like I think it's more to do with the airflow than wind itself. So he can actually like manipulate airflow, and that's another reason why his quirk is at number five. And I'll try to describe the quirk as well as the thing, now that I just kind of thought about doing that. Hey, um, I don't know if that's a Yeah, I'm not. I think that's the only chat I see. Looks like that's a okay. It looks like that's a spam bot or something. Whoops. Um, sorry. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so that's where the number five we were where we were before I realized I needed to talk about why those what these characters were. Um, I really hope that that's not coming through. Uh, um, so right now, hold on, let me scoot this back so it's not. Oh, hopefully not as not catching music or anything. Um, but aside from that, I will just uh, go to the next character, Amajiki. Um, so his power is whatever he eats, he can gain the power, or he can like kind of turn his body into. So this is really interesting. Like it's again very similar to Mirio. He's actually one of the top three students in the entire school that they attend uh, underneath Mirio. Um, but Amajiki can essentially like basically like turn into whatever he eats. So basically, you are what you eat, and he can basically what I think it's limited to like he might have a limit to it based on what he's actually eaten recently. I don't know the specifics of it, but yeah, he can utilize it in a very unique and interesting way as well, where it's just like he has like octopus arms. He can have uh, like a bull head or something, a bull horns or something like that. Like it's interesting. Like and like basically he's kind of got limitless possi- possibilities because like he could just like I don't know. God, that music's really loud. Sorry, um, but um, that's not me playing that music, by the way. But anyway, um, oops, sorry. Anyway, so his quirk is really just limited on what he eats, which basically means he could just it's very versatile, and I think that's what makes his quirk so special. Um, sorry, and I think the next one I'm gonna put the other big three, the remaining big three, as number seven, Nejire Hado. Um, the reason I put her as the last one is not for any particular reason. It's not for stupid reasons, but it's because really the show hasn't really done much to really showcase what all that she can do. And I know that she's very similar to Nejire. Like honestly, her and Amajiki could easily be flipped because I just don't know enough about what she can do. and I don't think the show's really done much to help do that. So what she really, so her abilities is like she's got like these like hoops. I don't know what to say, but they're like she can like use them to float and she can shoot them at people, but they're like these like rings of light or something that just she can kind of utilize to fly around and to as attacks and everything really. um I think she might be able to, I don't know if she's able to bind people with them. Again, like she's really like she seems to have really good power. It's just I don't know enough if she's very capable, or I don't know how vast that power could be, um, or how, because that's where it kind of it's hard to tell where she could really break out into. Um, Now this one's tough. This next one, this is where it starts to get really tough as to who is up there, who is um who is in these next three spots. Sorry. This is probably going to be a little bias, but Tenya Ida. I think Ida. I do genuinely believe though that Ida could be as high as number 8. I think he does have that potential and he does have that drive. Um, it is he's gotten to do a lot more showcasing of his ability. So his ability is he essentially has like jet propeller or jet legs. I don't know how to describe that, but he's just extremely fast and he can use like jet propulsion on his legs. He basically can, yeah, like he's got like little exhaust pipes in his legs that kind of propel him forward. Um so yeah, like his and I think the like so essentially he's just really fast and very he can cover a lot of ground. He can cover a lot of uh he can do a lot to an enemy as well. He's just a really interesting. Uh, like I think what motivates him is more is why I would put him up so high. Um, and I think that's why he is, I believe, good enough to become the number 8 hero. And this is where, like I said, this is where it starts to get a little more interesting, and the characters. This is why I would like to go into potentially, because I don't, unfortunately, I don't know. Like I'm trying to figure out if any of these characters would. It's tough. It's tough because right now I'm just looking at a lot of the characters remaining, and unfortunately, there's only 2 left, and I don't think anyone from Class B is gonna make it to the top 10. Um, so the classes are there's 2 separate classes. One is like the main main group, and then the other is just another class in the school. Uh, but unfortunately, just based on how strong the first class is, I don't think. What is he doing up here? Um, but I don't think this group is going to um like I don't think I'm going to get to that's one of the reasons why I would love to do an 11 through uh 25 is because um I think that that would be where a lot of this stuff becomes interesting, because right now it's just a couple of main characters and really some characters that really showed up in like certain arcs that were kind of showing how the main students can improve. Um, but for right now, oh, and one thing about I think that I forgot to mention um, about Inasa is that he is actually I believe a freshman, whereas like I said, most of the group is like sophomore except for the three seniors here. He's like actually a freshman, and he is very powerful, and he was going pretty much toe to toe with, I think it was Todoroki, um, in like their big in like a sort of cross school tournament, not really tournament, but it was like a exam, I think. And yeah, they were pretty much going toe to toe with each other. And well, anyway, I should probably get to number 9. Um, I think Ochako. The reason why I'm going Ochako with this one is she's had a lot more. Um, she's kind of had a lot more growth recently, and like I could start to see more motivation for why she wants to become better and wants to help people, especially um, she's pretty much the main character's love interest. So, um, especially how she wants to uh, help Deku, um, because yeah, like I think that's really her drive to get stronger is kind of being inspired by how Deku has become stronger, and she's also cultivated a lot of different talents and a lot of different abilities. She's good at close combat. She practiced with heroes with close combat, which is strange because her abilities are she can actually just make things float. Um, and while that doesn't sound initially that great, she could basically just like float a bunch of rubble, and then a lot of times she'll just float a bunch of rubble, and then she can control if it lands down on, like, control it so it like just crushes an enemy. Um, and she's very strong with her ability as well, and I think that that's uh, just her ability is just really powerful and can do a lot, and she's very uh, versatile in that way, and can and I think her motivations have gotten a lot stronger recently, um, and I think that's probably why a lot of this is based on motivation and what their drive is, because I think it's hard for me to say, yeah, like, because it's kind of hard to tell. Because when I don't know a character's how strong a character wants to be, and sorry, and is actively seeking to get better at and improve themselves, I think that really helps them build move up in the rankings. Now, number 10 is very interesting, and there is a lot of potential characters. Like these four right here are some strong candidates. Actually, I think Kendo is also a strong candidate as well for the number 10 spot. Honestly, this is one of the the ones that I could see easily rotating out and having multiple heroes show up. But I think the character that would most get would be most it's tough. I'm really between two. But I think the character that would probably be the most that would be the strongest here and the most often at number 10 is Yaoyorozu. So Yaoyorozu's her quirk, which again I don't even know if I've mentioned that, but that's what the powers are called. Her quirk is creation, which basically just means she can create anything. As long as I think she usually it she creates it out of her body, so she is kind of limited in that sense. She can't just like create a jumbo jet or something. But uh yeah, it's she's pretty powerful in that. She's also very smart and is able to think like 20 steps ahead of her opponent. But it's just so interesting to see. This is why this last part is so hard to find, hard to figure out between multiple characters. Like I don't know. Like I think she is always seeking to improve and seeking to do better. And she kind of has a rivalry with Kendo, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was like unsure about putting about who exactly should be put there. Um, but she is just I think based on her power alone, she is easily or that's why she would fit into this. Why she would become one of the top 10, and that's why she would more often become top 10 than some of the other characters in this on this list. And really I'd like to get into really just all of these just to go even deeper because it's so interesting to see all these characters. These, I mean, I think the more interesting and the tougher list would be 11 through 25. Just trying to figure out. Okay, well, like just trying to figure out who would be in that list. But this is a list that I think is probably the most accurate to what the series would present as far as who is the top 10. This is who I suspect is going to be the top 10. The next top 10. Now there's still some time. So let's go to the next top 10. And so this is a little more complicated than that because we only have, there's not really that many characters that we've seen that are like a generation below our current characters. But one person we have seen who's got very, very big potential is Eri. Now, the question really is whether or not these kids even choose to become heroes. Because Eri, that's still a big question if she's gonna become a hero. But I think a lot of these characters, and I mean, like I said, future characters as well, are going to be bit a big factor in this. But Ares' power is essentially, it's called rewind, and she can. It's hard to describe, but she can just kind of like. It's kind of like she could just turn back time for like. In some ways, like I don't know specifically, but theoretically, if there's a big fight, she could theoretically just reverse all of the damage that was ever done in that fight, and I think that's would be incredible. But she could just kind of reverse things to their original state or something like that. She can reverse things to how they were before, yeah, like literally before they were broken, before they were damaged, which she can also do this with people. And I think that's one of the, could be really interesting, given that they're dealing with villains who are suffering emotionally, and could that even extend to emotional damage? Could she reverse emotional damage? In which case she could potentially convert villains to heroes. So yeah, I think she's got a very big future ahead of her if she decides to go the hero route. Another character that I don't know. I'm still trying to think about whose potential. I think theoretically, if we're going with this being the next generation, we kind of have to go, like I said, they've kind of confirmed that they're a love interest. So it would have to be Midoriya and Ochako's child. That's how a lot of these top characters are going to go, because it's hard to really decide. Like I said, this is supposed to be the next generation after the My Hero characters. So I think this would be a more interesting I think this would be a more interesting thing, because I feel like a character that would have the number one hero as their parent, or two number one heroes, they definitely want to be in the top 10, but I don't necessarily think that they would be motivated enough to become number one hero, or even have the strength necessary, because a combination of quirks between, I do think the problem is it's hard to predict how the quirks will react to each other. And Midoriya, unfortunately, cannot pass on his all-for-one quirk. One for all quirk. I knew I was going to do it at some point. His one for all quirk, he probably wouldn't pass it on There's actually a recent development in the series that suggests that he might not pass it on at all. But I think he theoretically could have a successor, but the successor would have to be quirkless. So maybe because Midoriya was born quirkless, essentially just a normal person, and was given that power. But with Ochaka's power, with her being able to touch things and make them float, I think this also, because the thing is, the quirks are genetic, and Deku's mother has a form of telekinesis. So I'm not saying that I don't know how strong it would necessarily be, because her telekinesis is not very strong. But theoretically, their child could have a telekinetic. She could literally move things, like not with touch but with her mind. I think like very similar. She could have like Ochaka's ability to move things with her, like similar to how Ochaka can make things float. She could potentially make things float with her mind, which is basically telekinesis. I don't know if she would be able to control it to stop floating or be able to move it around. Yeah, like I think that's probably the biggest question is, could she physically move them with her mind, or would she be able to make them float with her mind, and then she would have to push them in place, or she or he, whatever their child would end up being, what their would they be able to move that with their mind, or would they have to? Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting concept and a very interesting idea. But it's really a matter of how motivated the character would be, and given that this is a theoretical character, a lot of factors are still questionable. I feel like the next one, just out of what we've seen, this one's tough. This one's probably a lot tougher than any other thing. I think I'm gonna go with Coda. I don't know, because this is again one of those strange things that's like hard to tell. This is a character that the main character met. He has some ability to. He has like an ability to produce water out of his hands. And he is inspired by Deku to become a hero. But it's hard to tell what kind of hero, like how strong his abilities could be, even if he practiced them, or how strong his quirk could become, even if he practiced and practiced and practiced. And again, if Deku has a successor, like somebody who is, who takes one for all, obviously they're going to probably be in that number 2 or number 3 spot. But again, since there's no real, I'm just going off of characters that exist or characters that are confirmed to have feelings for each other, because that basically means that they're going to end up together. But as far as that goes, I'm just going to stick him at number three, just because if he can really control his quirk to have like water, he could just essentially become a waterbender, and that would be insane. But again, not knowing how powerful, this is really just a crapshoot. So I think the next character is, there's a lot of kids. There's this, I forget what they it was like a kindergarten class that actually, I might save this for five. Yeah, hold on. Hold on to that. I'm going to put, and this might be a spoiler, unfortunately, because they only just recently showed that these two. I've personally loved this ship. This is my ship, and they just recently kind of revealed that the two have feelings for each other. This is Jiro and Kaminari. She can kind of produce sound waves. I don't know if that's her. She can she has like little like plugs coming from her ears. Those are actually her. Those strings are actually her earlobes, and she can like plug into like the ground and stuff like that, and actually like hear shockwaves. And she can actually like plug them into, I think she's got like amplifiers in her legs. I don't know if they're like just gear or if they're Sorry about that. I had some personal financial stuff. Uh, but as far as going back to describing these two, Jiro's ability, like she, I don't know if it's part of her quirk or if it's an ability that, or if she uses um, if she uses like actual like support items or like tech that allows her to shoot shockwaves out of her legs, but yeah, she can also just shoot shockwaves out. Uh, I think it's just it might just be a support item, but either way, she is able to kind of use like like she can kind of hear things far away if she sticks her things or her little like ear buds into the ground or into really any surface. And then Kaminari is able to. He has essentially electricity power, and he can just kind of like shock. Uh, uh, he can just shock things. Like I don't know if that sounds weird, but yeah, his electricity power can overheat essentially and cause him to just leave him defenseless. But I think with the potential their child could potentially be able to do a lot of incredible things. I think they have probably some of the most compatible quirks around. The fact that she can use shockwaves, the fact that he can kind of use electricity. She could I mean, if you can have those those shocking things, and then also a an electric ability, or those earbud things, and then also an electric ability, you basically are a taser. So, I I feel like they could do a lot when it comes to what their child could potentially do, or what any of like they could have multiple children and what any other child could do. And that's another thing that's uh that like whether or not these characters would have multiple children, and would any a number of them become heroes. That's a really interesting. I think this is why this theoretical one is more interesting to talk about. Next, I will put uh and I will put whoever is the this group of children that I believe they were uh uh Bakugo and Todoroki were helping out at for part of their licensing exam or something. Um and they were helping out like a, I don't know if it was a daycare or what it was, but they were helping out. Um, it might have been like a kindergarten or something, and they were just helping out these students, these kids that have these crazy powerful quirks because there's a it was is also a way to describe a theory called the quirk singularity theory, which basically means that powers grow more powerful the more generations that have passed. And one of these characters has like these. I think the one I'm particularly putting at number five is the only one that I really remember too much. and that was one that had the ability to create these like strange like I can't remember what specifically they were. They were like floating balls of just like teeth. I don't know how else to describe them. Um, but yeah, like they could just easily like I think he has the potential to be a very powerful hero in the future. Um, Number 6, I would say. Hmm, I don't remember his name, but this character from uh this character from I believe it's the second movie. Uh, I I'm totally blanking on the name, even though I just watched the movie yesterday. Uh, um, just gonna move these around a little bit too. Uh, but his ability is, I believe it's cell regeneration or something like that. But he can basically heal people. He basically like can control cells in his or another person's body. Um, and really, they just kind of used it to heal in the movie. But I mean, theoretically, that could be a really powerful quirk if he can basically control the cells in another in like a villain's body to hurt himself, or cause him pain so he could subdue them. That could be a really versatile quirk. I think, and honestly, if he can do that, I would honestly kind of want to push him up to 5, because he could be a really good quirk user. And the only reason, or even 4, because I don't exactly know what Jiro and Kaminari's child would even potentially, what powers they have. They could just have something where it's like their earbuds can shoot tasers, and if that's the case, they might not be that powerful. But if they can actually use like the combine the shockwave and the electricity, then they would be a really powerful quirk user if they can combine those two abilities of the her shockwave ability and his uh charge bolt or charge or his electric ability. And that's why I'm putting them at number 4, putting the potential for their child to be at number 4. um but yeah, like again, I don't know the potential for this kid. He definitely has a lot more motivation than potentially some of the other characters on this list, but that seems to be where I would just stick with him being there. Number 6. Now it's kind of starting to become difficult to um so hmm I'm just doing okay. So I don't know what even that says, but these two, she is her quirk is she can make mushrooms sprout anywhere. and his quirk is that he can create, or he can jump out of shadows, essentially. But they're a really interesting. I think their combination could essentially. I don't know how their combination, how their quirks would come together, but it would be very interesting to see. I think uh, I think that they could be able to be very, like, I think that they're I think they could potentially be able to create like maybe a black fungus that allows them to manipulate. I don't know, like it's the possibilities are kind of endless with what they could, what their potential is, of what their the combination of their quirks would be. But then again, a lot of these ones, it's very questionable of if their quirks could combine and if they would be compatible to combine, because that's kind of what Todoroki's backstory kind of suggests, that it's very difficult for these quirks to combine in a very co co cohesive way that could become a very powerful quirk. So, but I'm just thinking of possibilities. They could be able to create like a black fungus that just controls uh that allows that gives them that they have control over, which would be really powerful. They could create a, or they could just be either of those. So yeah, I don't know how that would work out, but I'm very curious to see where that would head. The next one, I think Gentle and La Brava, they are actually villains. He is able to create invisible, kind of like invisible walls that he can kind of manipulate, into any sort of shape. So, like, I think he can actually like bounce off of them and as well. I don't know if they're like any type of shape or any type of like strength wise, or if they can be like solid as a rock or springy as a or can be like springy like a trampoline. I know he's used them to be that springy as a trampoline, but I can't remember if they can be like super like dense as well. But that's what his powers are, and I believe her power, I think she can like create. I might need to look this up again because it's been a little bit, but I think she can create like. I know she is able to strengthen uh, the ability of a person she loves. I think that's her quirk. So essentially, my thought process in what their kid theoretically could have is like love bubbles, where they could theoretically create they could potentially create like but uh they could create like heart-shaped, essentially heart-shaped bubbles, like Gentle's walls, and just kind of be able to like maneuver them either around an opponent uh, or around an object or an opponent, or thereby trapping them, or by using them as being able to shoot them out. I think they would be a very interesting character. And I think one thing about the reason why I would push this character to be a hero is because, based on their arc, they aren't exactly bad people, but they've just made some bad decisions. So I think these two could potentially be redeemed and try to raise a potentially heroic child. I think that would be pretty much a likely situation. And I've also got some heroes on here. Theoretically, Mount Lady and Kamui Woods could could have a relationship, but I don't know if they've really ever confirmed anything. They might have mentioned a rumor about it, but they never really confirmed anything about them being in a relationship or any sort of relationship occurring between them. It's just kind of hinted at. So that's the reason why I'm not putting a theoretical child of them on there. But essentially, what I would imagine is they could just grow into the giant. Like, she can grow to a gigantic size, and he is basically able to control, or he can just kind of like shoot out like giant, like tree trunks from his arms and stuff. So essentially, they would just create one of the giant treants from Lord of the Rings, and that would just their kid would just essentially be able to grow into a giant tree, or be poison ivy, and just be able to control a massive tree. But I don't think they would be particularly like theoretically they could be on this list but again, there's no real confirmation, so that's why I'm kind of ignoring them for now. This is the older sister of this character, and she doesn't seem to have an interest in becoming a hero. She has a really cool quirk. She can create illusions, but the illusions, unless she can strengthen them, they cannot interfere with anything. So they're it's kind of like something that doesn't really have in a practical use, on being a battlefield or anything like that. So I feel like it's really just between these two. I don't know if these two actually have a relationship or not, but they seem to be the closest ones. They are part of the same arc as Inasa, but they are from a different school. So his ability is he's able to essentially produce shockwaves, and her ability is she can essentially compact her body like a turtle. Um, and then I've also got from the Vigilantes comics, Pop Step and um, the main character Crawler, who could have a who do they've pretty much confirmed, at least from where I'm reading, they definitely have feelings for each other. Um, but I don't really know if, again, I haven't read super far into that manga to know uh where things go from there. Like I don't even know if like how far things are, but theoretically they could have a child as well. I think I'm going to put these two up here because I think the shockwave and the compacting would be a useful ability. Um, I think the reason is I think the compacting thing could just be something where it's like the whatever character or whatever child that they would have would be like a gyroscope, and they could shake everything kind of around them but still maintain their stability. And I think that could her ability could be offer like the a, a more stable uh like him to be like his like a child that would have his ability, but it be but they could basically manipulate everything. Like their body could remain still, but they could manipulate people or like the earth around them, because he's kind of got like an earthquake. It's kind of like, I think the way it was initially, like I said, it was a shockwave kind of thing, but his was more like uh sort of like he could vibrate and like create like shockwaves. So I think like those two having like a child, it would be like and again I forget their names. I'm sorry for that, but I think his name is Yo. Um, but yeah, they could have like a more they could create like somebody who is has that stability of her sort of like her like remaining stable, and or her being able to sort of contort herself, like their body would be able to contort to the shock waves better than his body can. And I think that actually makes the next generation between them actually much more effective as a potential. And then Crawler and Pop Steps child. Um, Crawler's ability is very weirdly specific. If he has 3 points of contact, uh, he can slide around very fast. But he has to have 3 points of contact, so it's very specific. So like he has to have like 2 feet and an arm on the ground. I think he can also utilize it so that if he has like a knee, and like if he's uh like he can use like if he's got like a leg down and like a knee, or like leg down at the knee and like that full uh leg, that he might just be able to use two. Um and Pop Step's ability is that she can jump really high. Um so yeah, I think that's it could create some interesting combinations, and maybe some mobility that's like they could just jump straight onto walls and start sliding across and like essentially just they would be more like a speed character that could just very similar to where Ida was is a very speedy character that is a little bit that has a little bit more maneuverability in the air, thanks to Pop Step's ability. But yeah, this is where I think this particular where I think this would be the next top 10. I think this is a more is an interesting concept of just where they would be and how these quirks would react to each other, and how they would combine into a powerful quirk. And honestly, since her quirk affects emotions, maybe like the bubbles could also emotionally affect some of the people. Like I'm just like this combination is such an interesting idea. Like I'm just so curious about where their what their kids' potential quirk could be. I think it's such an interesting, unique idea. And then just a lot of these characters, like just seeing what their potential for quirks could be. Now, I will say with Midoriya and Uraraka, I think they said Midoriya's dad has a minor fire quirk, and like I said, the mom has a minor form of telekinesis. She can tell. She can. She has like a very small range of like. I believe it's only like. I think it's like less than 3 meters or something. So it's not very like. I can't remember. I think the range is like. I can't remember if that's like a diameter, 3 meter diameter, which is actually pretty small, and it's like not very useful. But yeah, like she can just kind of like make things like float to her. Um, like she could just telepathically grab something. Um, but yeah, like I think this is an interesting like to figure out what kind of quirk they would combine. Like if he passed on his mother's quirk and she passed on her quirk, which I think is I can't remember how her quirk combines, but like it would be an interesting like if she passed on her like gravity quirk, um, then yeah, they could be really powerful. They could have a really powerful kid. Um, but yeah, this is where I think yeah, unfortunately a lot of this is based on theoretical characters, but I think there's enough uh but I think there's enough potential and a lot of these kids, the ones I don't remember, might have quirks that could pass in the 9 and 10 or whatever, or could break the top 10. Again, very similar to how I said the other one was a little bit more fluid, where it's like this is just where I would see the majority of the characters quirk, or the majority of characters um having like where the majority of where they would potentially stand with their characters. um I think I'm just rambling on at this point, but like this is where I think most likely these characters would be in the as heroes. Like, this is where the next top 10 would be. And I think that's gonna do it for this. I'll try to get back to streaming regularly, a little bit more. But right now, I think I'm just gonna call it there. This will be up probably on YouTube. Hopefully that audio won't be messed up with like the sound in the background, but I'll see if I can do anything about that. But otherwise, I think that's gonna do it here for this tier list. And just once again, I'll go over that. This this is the number one. This is the top 10 currently, or the next top 10. I mean, what I believe who would be the next top 10, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment based on the character's abilities. And then here's the next top 10, and of course the two, having both the characters, that just means that it would be their child potentially. But anyway, I think that's gonna do it, and I'm gonna sign out for now. See you later.